Today, we're cutting through the noise on one of the biggest silent disasters facing men today, the male loneliness crisis. You've probably heard about it. Young men walking through life completely alone in ways that previous generations and most women simply cannot comprehend. This isn't victimhood or exaggeration. The data is overwhelming and convergent. The percentage of sexless men ages 18 to 30 has been rising for decades, with a sharp spike after 2008. And unlike many social complaints, this one is likely underreported by men, who tend to downplay vulnerability. The real picture is probably even worse. By 2018, the number of sexless men had tripled. This was the period when social media and dating apps really came into the equation. The numbers are likely even higher in 2026. According to a 2025 Pew Research study, 63% of men ages 18 to 30 are single. That's 2 out of every 3 men. That's the age range when, throughout human history, men and women would come together and start a family. It's also the age range when men are at their peak levels of testosterone. The fact that 2 out of 3 men are unpartnered in this age range should raise some alarm bells. On the flip side, the same survey showed that 68% of women in the same age range are in a relationship. So why are there over twice as many single young men as there are single young women? The answer is two-pronged. Reason 1. Women are, often unbeknownst to themselves, hypergamously sharing so-called high-value top 5% men. These men are often stringing multiple average women along for the sake of abundance, novelty, variety, and easy access. Check out my video on the 3 genders in dating for a deeper dive into this phenomenon. Reason 2. Women are dating older men, sometimes significantly older. Again, I would refer you to my videos on age gap relationships and The Wall for an in-depth look at this phenomenon. The number of men reporting no close friends at all has also skyrocketed over the last 30 years. Young men are far more likely than women to have no romantic partner and to feel profound loneliness. The marriage rate has been in free fall since the mid-1960s. On dating apps, women rate over 80% of men as unattractive. This doesn't mean they rate 20% of men as being attractive, they're just not considered unattractive. Data show women are only actively engaging with the top 4.5% of men on the apps, with a sharp clustering towards the top 1 to 2% of men. This raises the bar for entry into any relationship to brutal levels. The mainstream has ridiculous explanations: toxic masculinity, men won't commit, or just make more friends, bro. Some admit there's a general loneliness problem affecting women too. And they're right. Women are also losing close friendships. But the male experience hits differently, and the data shows it. Both the manosphere and the woke crowd get parts of it right, but neither has the full picture. The manosphere correctly points to hypergamy and women chasing the top 4.5% of men. The woke crowd is dead wrong when they blame misogyny. The crisis started long before the manosphere even existed. You can't blame the big manosphere influencers for something that began in the 1960s and 70s. So let's go back to the beginning. Starting in the late 1960s and accelerating through the 1970s, the West implemented a series of entitlement policies that quietly dismantled the incentives for stable marriage and family. No-fault divorce combined with alimony turned marriage into a dangerous contract for men. Suddenly, a woman could end the marriage for any reason, or no reason, and the state would extract wealth from her ex-husband regardless of fault. Men, as traditional breadwinners, became walking targets. At the same time, welfare programs like aid to families with dependent children created perverse incentives. Benefits were structured in ways that rewarded single motherhood and penalized intact families. Family courts shifted heavily toward default maternal custody. The Civil Rights Act and later DEI frameworks further tilted the scales, pushing equity over merit and reinforcing the idea that men's resources should be redistributed. This wasn't a neutral policy. These changes created massive incentives that tilted the scales against stable marriage for men. And just as with regular socialism, it produced the predictable result. The net producers began opting out. High-value men, the tall, successful, attractive, high-earning ones, looked at the rigged game and said, "Why commit? Why risk losing half my assets and future income if she gets bored or finds someone else?" In a culture that also embraced free love and promoted casual intimacy as empowering, the winning strategy for the tiny pool of men whom women were attracted to became stringing multiple women along, spinning plates, never committing, and never signing the contract. The result? A highly imbalanced dating market. Women get access to the top men for intimacy and excitement, but rarely for commitment. Average and below average men are entirely locked out. They receive zero attention, zero intimacy, zero acknowledgement. Many go years or decades without an ounce of romantic validation. That is the core of the male loneliness crisis. These are broad statistical patterns. Of course, individual people vary. Women aren't winning either. They're getting used and discarded by the small pool of men they genuinely desire, then wondering why all the good men are gone when they finally want to settle down. The same system that disincentivizes male commitment leaves women chasing ghosts and wondering why stable relationships feel impossible. The apps didn't create this. They simply accelerated the existing incentives and made the 95-5 dynamic brutally visible. The foundations were already laid by 1975. The woke establishment makes it worse. Decades of blank slate nonsense, denying biological differences in psychology, mate preferences, and behavior, left institutions completely unable to diagnose or fix the problem. Instead of honest analysis, we get gaslighting. Blame men, blame masculinity, tell women they deserve a high-value man no matter what. It's a projection from people who helped build the broken system. So how do we fix it? System-level changes are essential. End no-fault divorce alimony for the initiating spouse. Reform welfare to remove penalties on marriage and two-parent homes. Eliminate the marriage penalties in tax law and give real incentives for committed families. Scrap DEI and return to merit. Stop the anti-male bias in family courts. Ensure fairness in reproductive decisions, including mandatory paternity testing. Challenge cultural messages that encourage delaying family formation during women's prime fertile years. Make early motherhood and family formation the norm again. Up until 1970, the average age of first-time mothers was 20. The average age of marriage was 21. Today, women are encouraged to pursue careers in hedonistic pursuits in their 20s and wait until their 30s to have children. The results are clear as day. On the personal level, men must focus on ruthless self-improvement. Build your body, your money, your mission, and your frame. Stop pedestalizing women in a rigged market. Become the kind of man who can walk away if the terms aren't right. Women who want real commitment need to understand they've been lied to by the novel boomer ideologies, by mainstream culture. Filter for men who actually demonstrate a willingness to commit. Stop chasing the top 4.5%, expecting them to change or commit. Self-improve without shame. Brother, the male loneliness crisis isn't random. It's the predictable outcome of decades of bad incentives and denial of human nature. The novel boomer ideologies broke the natural bargain between men and women. Introducing technologies like the pill and social media was like pouring gas on the fire. The good news? You don't have to wait for the system to fix itself. Start with yourself. Reclaim your purpose. Build strength in a world that wants you soft and compliant. If this video hit hard, drop a comment. How has the loneliness crisis affected you or the men around you? Share this with someone who needs to hear the truth. Also, check out my video on how female evolutionary psychology is reshaping the West. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're not here to cope. We're here to rebuild. This is prime male evolution. You're in your prime. Act like it.